Since 1986, Congress has passed over 230 new or expanded penalties for drug and criminal offenses in this United States. 230 new penalties. And these penalties range from an automatic 5 years in jail for any person caught with a rock of crack cocaine, a piece of crack cocaine as small as a quarter. I don't have a quarter with me, but if you visualize what one looks like, yeah, I do have a quarter. If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, 1/4 of $1, we passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice. Now, the fact of the matter is, we've gone from there all the way up to saying, under the leadership of Senator Thurmond, and I'd like to suggest that I take some small credit for it myself as well, and others, the presiding officer, that there is now a death penalty. And we passed it a couple years ago. If you are a major drug dealer involved in the trafficking of drugs and murder results in your activities, you go to death. And a number of other severe penalties. We changed the law so that if you are arrested and you are a drug dealer, under our forfeiture statutes, the government can, take everything you own, everything from your car to your house, your bank account, not merely what they confiscate in terms of the dollars from the transaction that you just got caught engaging in. They can take everything. We have laws in the last several years where we don't allow judges discretion to sentence people. Flat time sentencing. You get caught, you go to jail. Well, all of these tools have been at the president's disposal for the last 100 weeks and more. Now, if America's crime problem is worse than it ever was, it's not because the Congress has failed to give the president the tools. It's done its part, but rather because the administration has failed to use the power given to it by the Congress over the last 5 years, and in particular the last 100 weeks, to bring this epidemic under control. Well, the facts are glaring how bad things are. 200 days ago, Congress enacted a life in prison for major drug dealers. Yet in the past 3 years, the president has obtained this penalty for only on average 4 drug dealers in the entire country each year. If you live here in Washington, you pick up the paper daily. As a matter of fact, the papers are stopped doing it because people are tired of seeing it. Major drug dealers engaged in turf wars, people getting shot on street corners, murder rate phenomenally high. So we said 43 years ago, put those people in jail for life, no probation, no parole. And in certain circumstances, they kill someone, put them to death. And guess what? Out of all those crimes you read about, out of all of the outrageous actions, this administration, on average, the last 3 years, has gotten on an average, 4 persons per year. 4, count them, 4 per year. Think about it. We have about 2 million people who have been using cocaine weekly in this country over the past over the past half decade. But over the past 3 years, the administration has used its power to send drug dealers to jail for life only once every 3 months. The Congress is not tough on crime. 1,000 days ago, Mr. President, Congress gave the president the power to seek the death penalty against drug kingpins who murder. But in the past 1,000 days, this president, during the period of bloodshed and mayhem of which the president has spoken, the president has obtained the death penalty for only one person. One. Congress is not tough. Congress passed a law and said, Mr. President, find these people when you get them, when the Justice Department has them, and they've murdered somebody, put them to death. That's what we said. You have the power. 1,000 days ago, that was given. One time has the vaulted Justice Department under the leadership of Mr. Thornburgh, who beats up the Congress all the time, one time have they obtained a death penalty. Now look, maybe there's reasons why they can't. Maybe it's hard to make a case. Maybe there's a whole rationale for why. But I find it, quite frankly, preposterous that this president stands up and says, this Congress is not tough on crime after we've given him all this power. And just to take two examples, he's only 4 times a year put someone in prison for life, and only once gotten the death penalty. 23,500 murders, 2,200,000 people cocaine addicts, 5.7 million felonies a year, one death penalty, 4 times a year life imprisonment. And the Congress is not tough on crime? Mr. President, this quarter, remember I told you before? We passed a law, bipartisan. We said crack cocaine is such a bad deal that if you find someone with this much of it, a quarter's worth, not in value, in size, 5 years in jail. Well, guess what? If the Justice Department in New York City, the U.S. Attorney, arrests you with that much, the police arrest you, and they take you to the Justice Department, and you only have that much, guess what the Justice Department, Mr. Thornburgh, says? We're not going to prosecute you. You have to have 10 times that much for us to prosecute you in New York City. Whose judgment is that? The Congress or the President? And guess what? If you're in Miami and you get picked up with this much cocaine, crack cocaine, they say, we're not going to put you in jail for 5 years. You say, well, we caught him with 10 times this much. They say, nah, we're still not going to do anything. We're not going to prosecute you. You have to have 100 times the minimum amount required. Congress said, put them in jail for 5 years if they have this much. The president said, and he has his own reasons for saying it, and they may be good ones, but he says, no, not unless you have 100 times this much. Are we going to even prosecute you? I ask you, Mr. President, who's not tough on crime? The Congress? The Constitution says we pass the laws. The President enforces the laws. We don't have a vigilante posse up here, Mr. President. We can't start holding court here. We can't prosecute people from here. We can't, in the Congress, say, arrest him or her or him, bring them into this chamber. We have a law that says you go to jail for 5 years, no probation, no parole. If you have this much, they had this much, the jury finds they have this much, lock them up and put them in our prison.